Now, as metal fans, if there's one thing that we search for in bands that are going to eventually become our favorites, or from a band that delivered a really powerful debut, is what they're able to do with the rest of their work, with the rest of their career. Consistency. Are they able to kind of ascend further on past their debut, or do they kind of just stay the status quo, and that's about it? With the Black Dahlia Murder, their debut Unhallowed, which was released almost a decade ago, was a pretty solid start. It was one of those bands to kind of watch back in that time frame. And the whole entire genre was really starting to bud as a whole whenever you take a listen to the metalcore or the deathcore, what it's become now, or just melodic death metal in general. This was kind of the rise of all of that, with bands such as Lamb of God, Shadows Fall, As I Lay Dying, and the more popular center, and then other bands that came and went, such as Kane. Now, with the Black Dahlia Murder's most recent album, Ritual, which is released here in 2011, in fact, about a week from now it will be released, well, we now see a band that's about 4 or 5 albums in. In fact, I do believe it is 4. I'm wrong, it's 5. And they have kind of taken this journey where they have really stepped up their game with the last 2 records, with Nocturnal and Deflorate. And those 2 records, especially Nocturnal, got a high amount of praise, and a lot of fans really felt that the Black Dahlia Murder had started to reach an apex part of their career, but also with Deflorate coming afterwards being solid as well, they almost reached a plateau in their career, where they were able to consistently write really consistent and good music. Even though that is a little bit redundant, it's just the truth. The redundancy is redundant in itself. However, whenever they went in to lay down Ritual, they wanted to do something even further different. The writing style had been a 50-50 split between 2 of the members, and they wanted to expand it even more. They wanted to explore some new techniques. They wanted to see if they could take the Black Dahlia Murder sound, which is already a very solid and very consistent level of melodic death metal, with the focus there really being on the death metal side, and take it to the next level. And with Ritual, you could definitely see the groundwork of this, for sure, starting to come into play. If not, some fans may consider that it's already completely in play. I'm one of these guys where I love albums at face value, and I can definitely respect what bands are trying to do, but I'm always thinking about the future. I'm always forward thinking. That's what you got to do in this game. You always got to be forward thinking. But whenever you review an album, you have to stay focused in the present, because obviously this is all we have. The future is uncertain. But I'm going to actually find a way to mold the two with this particular review. I loved what I was able to hear in the past with Black Dahlia Murder. They were always one of these bands that whenever I listened to the albums, I always felt very consistently happy with the stuff. These weren't albums that necessarily ever made it to my top 20 or really busted any sort of list down, really blew my ears away, but these were all just really consistent works. These were works that I was able to listen to and enjoy. Miasma was probably the only album that I've listened to by this band that I was not overly thrilled with, but at the same time, I wasn't overly disappointed. However, with the last 2, I loved them. With Ritual, they definitely follow more along the lines of the last 2 and progress even further. This is something where they are definitely experimenting outside the box in little droves. However, it's not something that's completely overtaken their core sound. They haven't gone so far out of the box that it becomes unrecognizable. In fact, if anything, they take their recognizable sound and they just build on it a little bit. And that's something that's really nice about this record. That's something that you can really get behind. You can feel as though maybe the other records prior to this kind of lacked a third dimension, even though it did. Even though it really had a third dimension, it just felt like it was lacking something, like something was keeping it from being pushed over the top. Now with Ritual, I feel that while it is extremely consistent, and it's a very good record, it's a solid record that I would recommend to each and every one of you, this is where the future thinking really comes into play for me. I really feel that this album is kind of just a groundwork, and if they continue writing along this style, that the next album, or the album after that maybe, could be the legend that really, builds this band into a really higher class, or a higher standard. I really feel that this is a record that, if it is really the groundwork, if Ritual is the groundwork for their future work, then the Black Dahlia Murder could be releasing a real gem next time around. That's not to say that this album isn't great. That's not to say that this album isn't the score I'm about to give it. However, I feel as though that since they're doing this more dynamic, organic, three-dimensional process of writing, where they're exploring new techniques, where they're exploring more soloing, where they're really just showing a lot of animosity in the vocal delivery, while at the same time allowing the music to fully represent everything that they're trying to really envelop in there, I think that the best is yet to come here, and that's, again, where the future really comes into play. Overall, I give this album a solid 8.25 out of 10. I don't know if it's going to be good enough once again. I mean, I always feel like I'm saying this about this band, and a lot of other bands, too. I don't think it'll quite be good enough to crack the top 20, but we'll see whenever it comes December. However, I do feel that there's something really good coming. You know, I listen to this record, and whenever I end the experience, I just think to myself, you know, man, they're really getting everything in the right direction. Like, Nocturnal was great, and it was a very solid release. Deflorate was good, and this album is along those same lines. I wasn't saying I can feel something really great coming after Nocturnal. In fact, I thought that maybe that was the top spot. That was the way that they were going to always be remembered. And with Deflorate, I thought to myself, well, close. I really think right now, we're almost there. In fact, we're very close. So, definitely, if you've kind of lost the pulse on the Black Dahlia murder, if you've kind of forgotten about them in years past, well, it's time to look again. It's time to get back into this band, because this is a band that I think is just on the cusp of doing something really great. And I think Ritual, it's a damn good start. Cover Killer Nation saying nothing, because this album speaks for itself.